Welcome to day 3 of 12 Makes of Christmas, the 2020 edition from Quilt Addicts Anonymous. Each year we love bringing you guys some fun tutorials that you can do and make Christmas gifts or holiday gifts you can finish this season. Now we're going to include one quilt in it, and we're doing it pretty early on so that you maybe have a prayer finish it by the holidays, but if you have it for next Christmas, that's fine too. I actually have a Christmas quilt in this desk that's been sitting here, all the blocks ready to go together for 5 years that I haven't pieced together. So someday that will happen and it will live on my bed. But for now, it's safe, which is, waiting for its time to be completed. I'm sure you all have those too. But anyway, today what we're going to be doing is a pattern from my new book, Fat Quarter Workshop, and we are actually doing one of the cover girls. We're going to do Ribbon Candy. Now, I did the original of this in Allison Glass's holiday collection from about a year and a half ago, and it was so pretty, so fun. I'm not really into the traditional Old St. Nick Christmas decorations. I like them to be a little fun, funky, and modern. And so this was a fabulous line. I knew I had to make a quilt in it and bring it to our Stashin with Stephanie subscribers when I saw it. If you don't know about Stashin with Stephanie, click on the link below. We won't go into it here. But it's super fun. It's fat quarter friendly. We do have several quilting lines still left at the shop. So make sure you check out shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com for some fat quarter bundles or some yardage that you can get, or you can always make this with your Christmas stash. If you are doing it with your stash, your Christmas stash at home, it's a good idea to either pick all of your greens and reds and have a very light background, or have a very medium background like we did for this one. I chose this nice charcoal gray, and that way I could use the green, the red, and the lighter colors as well, and they all stood out really well against that gray neutral. And that one is actually a woven, so there's a little bit of texture to it too, so it's really fun. Shelly Moore from Quilt Stitching by Shelly did the quilting on this, and it just turned out fabulous. It really accented that design, and I know it looks super complicated because you see all of those diamonds, but we actually strip piece the majority of this, so it goes really, really fast. All right, well, let's watch the replay of this video tutorial, and remember the pattern is now only available in my book, Fat Quarter Workshop, and it is one heck of a deal because you get 12 patterns plus how to quilt instructions in the front of the book for $14.99. So that's 12 patterns for $14.99, and if you get it from us, I will personalize it, although it has been hanging around in the top spots of the quilts and quilting section in Amazon since it's come out, which is exciting and something that I never imagined would happen, but really good gift for you and your quilting friends. If you get it from us, I'll sign it from you, but you can also get it from Amazon if you so choose, but I'll sign it. You can give your friend a nice signed gift and then tell her to check out the channel. All right, so let's watch that video tutorial. So the first thing I did was I cut my strips of fabric from the fat quarter bundles as instructed in the diagram, and then I'm cutting the pieces off. And since we're going to have pieces coming into the center, and again, if you don't have the pattern, you can go download it over at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. This is all meant to be supplemental, and it shows you how to cut these. Some of them are going to be coming in like this, and then you're going to have others that are going in the opposite direction. So just make sure that you are paying attention to your cutting diagrams in the description, in the pattern to go along with this, so that way you're cutting everything to go the right way, because that matters. It's not a huge deal to get it all going the right way, but you do need to pay attention so that way it works out correctly. All right, so I'm going to show you how to sew these guys together. So the very first thing I did once I cut all my strips is I split them in half, because I wanted half of them to be cut going this way and half going the other way. And I wanted the same number of colors. So like if there were 2 of these, then 2 went to one side and 2 went to the other. And then what I did is I cut them down, and then I arranged them into sets of 3 for the strip piece part. And again, your pattern tells you how many you need for that. And the reason why I did that first is you don't want to get to your last strip set and be like, I only have this color pink left, and that's not going to look good. So if you arrange them into sets of 3 ahead of time, then you know you're going to like it, and you can make any adjustments before you're really committed to those 3 being together. So that's my one tip. There's going to be lots more, but that's my first one, is read through your pattern, see what combinations you need, and then get your sets of 3 together. from the start, so that way you are confident that you're going to love this final layout. All right, so now what I need to do is I need to get these guys sewn together. So for this, all I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it right sides together. And you can see here that this point is coming up a little bit further than where the end of that is. And ideally, this little valley where the 2 points come together, that is going to be right where your 1/4 inch seam is going to be. And that way, when you flip this open, it's going to be a nice, smooth transition as you go straight across, and you'll have nice straight rows. Now, if it's not perfectly in line, not going to be the end of the world because we have plenty of wiggle room on this pattern, but do try to arrange it so that that corner is poking up just a tip, a little bit, so that this, where this valley is about a 1/4 inch away from the edge that you're going to sew. All right, so I've got that first section arranged. I'm going to go ahead and flip this over just because I need this to my edge that I'm sewing to be on the right side. And I'm setting my sewing machine up to sew a 1/4 inch seam, which is what you always use with quilting. And that way I can get this lined up and just line up that edge of the fabric with the edge of my presser foot. And I'm just kind of looking, and it is looking like this little valley here is right where my needle is. And if you see that as well, then it means you're pretty much in line. And again, if it's not super perfect, it's not the end of the world. So now I'm going to go ahead and just start sewing, making sure to always keep my fabric in line with the edge of that presser foot. And then when I get to the point where my hand has gone up as far as it can, I'm just going to realign my edges here. And then I just kind of put my finger on the fabric, and that just kind of holds it together, and that way you don't have to pin when you're doing the strip piecing units. Now, one thing to note is your larger strip is going to finish before your shorter strip. And that's okay, that's the way it's supposed to happen. Just go ahead and keep sewing all the way down to the bottom. And then you can align your next piece up and just chain piece all these right together. So let's flip these right sides together, flip them over so that the edge I need to sew is going to be even with the right side of my sewing machine. Then you can just lift up your presser foot, feed in the next piece, and start sewing. All right, so I'm going to keep doing this until I've sewn all my strip sets together. As usual, I'm pressing my seam open. To do that, I'm just putting my fingers 3 or 4 down ahead of the iron and just kind of using that to finger press as I go. And I just have that nose of the iron right down the center of that seam. And I like to do this for a couple of reasons. One, it lays super flat and you can do pretty much whatever you want when you get to the quilting part. And two, especially for long seams like this, you don't get that bend that you sometimes get when you're like pressing the iron and the strip just keeps bending up and up and up. So what you want to do is make sure that it's a nice straight seam and no little wiggles. If there's a wiggle in the back, it means there's a pleat on the front. So just keep an eye out for that so that everything just looks nice and straight. And then when I flip it over to the other side, I'm just going to hit that again with the iron just to get it nice and flat. And again, I really love how this gray kaleidoscope fabric presses, and they're all in Allison's saturated rainbow colors, so they coordinate beautifully. This charcoal is great because it's very neutral and it contrasts with everything, and it just gives the eye a nice place to rest. When I do sew with an open seam, I do reduce my stitch length to 2.0. So we've got our 3 fabrics sewn to our nice little neutral piece, and this is what's going to make up our strip set. So I'm just going to add 1 piece, one at a time, and what I'm just going to do is flip this right sides together. We'll do this side first, and again, I'm lining that up. It's kind of hard to see because this is white fabric, but so that the valley is, we'll do it with this one, so that way it's easier for you guys to tell. When I flip this over, this little valley here where these fabrics are coming together and forming that upside down triangle, that should be about a 1/4 inch away from this edge. And as long as you do that, your seams are going to be pretty much in line when you press them open so that you get a nice straight line when you're coming up across here. Again, if it's not perfect, no big deal, but you want to get it as close as you can. All right, so I'm just going to sew these together to get that set of 3 going. I've been waiting to press the set of 3 until they're all together. And the only difference I'm doing here is rather than just sliding the iron down, I'm lifting and pressing. That way I don't accidentally press this seam going in the wrong direction. And you'll notice that this does fit up pretty evenly with your larger strip. So you should be seeing that when you're sewing them together if you're doing it correctly. Flip everything over and get it from the right side as well, just to make that nice and flat. Now again, in order to get that ribbing candy look, your pieces are going to be leaning in towards each other for each row. So you're going to have one strip set that's angling to the center on one side and one will be going the other side. Make sure you refer to your instructions for ribbon candy, which you can get at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. It's explained in there really well. You've got layout diagrams, but you're going to have basically half of your strip sets are going to look like this and half will look like that. All right, I'm going to show you how to trim these up to create the bits that will go in your rows. And then we're going to sew our rows together and we are almost done with this. Love it. It's so fast, it is so cute, and it really shows off the fabric really well. So I flipped my mat over so that you're not going to be distracted by the lines. Because what we're going to do is we're going to use the lines on our ruler to help measure and even this up. So if you see, most rulers have these diagonal lines on them that will help you cut something that is not on a precise 90-degree angle. In this case, we're going to be using the 45-degree angle right there. So I'm going to line this line here on my ruler up with any of these seams because they're all on a 45-degree angle. So I'm going to just pick the top one and I'm lining that up just right along this seam so that is nice and even. And then I'm moving it over as close to the edge as I can. And I can see that it's pretty even. I did a pretty decent job sewing these together, but it's not perfect. So I need to square up this edge. So I'm just going to give that a trim. All right, so I've put my little bits to the side. I've got a nice square edge that I'm working with now. And now I can cut to the size that is mentioned on the ruler. I'm not going to give you that measurement here because you need to buy the pattern in order to get it, but I'm going to show you how to do it. What you'll do is you'll flip everything around. I'm right-handed, so I want to make sure that the side I'm going to be cutting on is over here. Then I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to line my edge up with the measurement that it says to cut it to for your row in the pattern. And then I'm going to take my 45-degree line and I'm going to make sure that is also lined up on one of the seam lines to make sure that I am nice and I've got my angles nice and crisp the way they're meant to be. Now, just a hint, if you get off, like say you've got your 45-degree line lined up, but it's looking wonky, things maybe got off a little bit as you were sewing and pressing, no big deal. Just move it over a little bit so that you're cutting past the measurement you need to cut to. Get your 45-degree line lined up, cut across the side, and then square it up on the end to the width you need it to be. I had to do that once or twice as I was cutting. It was really pretty easy and no big deal. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut my strips and then half of our rows, or the blocks. It's kind of like a row quilt that has long blocks in it. So half of mine will be done as soon as I'm done with this section. So I have my strips set, and these will be vertical rows, but I'm putting them sideways so you can see the whole thing on camera. But you can see how this is kind of coming together where they're both kind of meeting at the center here. And I wouldn't ever put these two next to each other in real life because that's the same fabric. We want to be more interesting than that. But you can see how it's sort of coming together and creating this cool look. Now we're going to create one more type of section to go in this row. It's super easy. So let me show you how to do it. All right, so I need to create a section that looks like this, but it's made from one large piece of fabric. So the easiest way to do it, and make sure that you have them going in those opposite directions and a nice even color variation across the quilt, is to do two of the same fabrics at once. So I've got these cut down to the size rectangle I need, and I just have them placed with the wrong sides together. And then I have them laid out nice and evenly right on top of each other. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab my ruler and I'm just going to chop off the corner. All right, so first I'm going to chop off this corner to look like that. Then I'm going to do the same thing over here to get that same angle. And I'm just kind of lining up the 45-degree line on my ruler, even with the bottom, and then I'm getting the edge of my ruler right into the corner of that piece. now when I flip this over, I've got two pieces that are angling in just like the two pieces that I have made here, where they're going to angle in on each other. I'm going to now do the same thing with my little background pieces. Just go ahead and slice off those corners. And now I'm going to arrange these at the tops of here. The idea is that when they flip right sides together, that they will complete and have everything going in the same direction. All right, so I've done this a little bit differently. So normally I can eyeball seams really easily, but for this I want it to be exactly on because I'm not used to sewing with this angle. It's a little bit different for me. So what I've been doing is as I flip these right sides together, we'll zoom in a little so you can see a little better. Been taking my ruler and I've been lining up this 1/4 inch mark with the edge of this piece. And what that's doing is it's allowing me to take a marking tool and mark right up into the corner there. And this white one shows up pretty well on this, so you can really see where that's at. And now remember, we're sewing with that valley together. We want to make sure that that valley is hitting right where that hash mark is. And then when you sew and flip this open, you're going to have a nice straight row. All right, so you can pin this, or you can just go for it and line it up. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a pin here. But I normally, you know, I don't like to take time with stuff like this unless I feel like it's absolutely necessary. I have been doing it. I guess I've sewn one row together at the point. I always try to get a good chunk of the quilt done before I film these videos so I know where your pain points might be. So this is one where I have been doing it every single time. I think probably by the end of the quilt, I'll be able to eyeball it. But for right now, I'm marking everything and I haven't been pinning, but if you feel like that will make your life easier, then please do that, because nothing worse than having to pick the seams out. So for this one too, you can go ahead and flip that right sides together and then go ahead and make your marks, pin, and then we're gonna sew. This is a Soebbing chalk pencil, by the way. We have these at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. They show up pretty well on dark fabric, but I've also been using a friction gel pen and I've been able to see that as well. I just didn't think you guys would be able to see it very well on camera, which is why I pulled this guy out. All right, so we'll start with the one that's pinned. I'm gonna go ahead and put that right underneath the sewing machine. Start sewing. Make sure you always remove those pins. They can break your needle and it can come flying at your eye. I've had it happen to me, it was a little scary. Then when you get down to the end, go ahead and remove that pin, and then I always put my finger just to the right, and that kind of helps me maintain my 1/4 inch seam all the way to the edge and you don't get a little wobbly at the end. This next one I'm going to show you how I've been doing it without pinning, because I'm not a fan of pinning. I like to avoid it if I can. So all I'm doing here is I'm first just going to arrange this top part so that way that little hash mark that I drew a 1/4 inch from the edge is nice and even with where that little valley is, so that I know I've got it lined up correctly. I'll go ahead and slide that under. And now that I've gotten it started a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and line up at the bottom as well. And I just kind of put my fingertip on top of that and then just hold it nice and taut. You don't want to pull on it. You just want to make sure that you're pushing down enough to let the fabric pull through at its natural pace, but that you're keeping everything together. All right, so I've gotten to the point where I can't hold my finger there anymore. So now again, I'm just gonna grab that tip and then move my finger to the side to help maintain that 1/4 inch seam all the way down. Just like before, I'm pressing that seam open. Again, I really love the possibilities it gives when it comes to quilting, and I find that your seams just lay so flat. All right, so this is what we're aiming for. We got a pretty straight line here. Here it's a little off, but nothing that you can't fix when you're fudging it and sewing everything together, so that's good. I'm gonna do the other side as well, and then we'll review what we've done so far. All right, so we've made two types of blocks that are really long segments of your rows. So you've got your strip piece ones, and again, they're angling in towards the center because of the way that we cut those when we start getting started there. And then we've got our long strips, which allow you to show off the fabric a little bit more than when it's just that little piece that's going to form the diamond. So when we actually sew these together in rows, they're gonna alternate. So that way you always have a strip piece one next to a full one. And again, it kind of gives the eye a place to rest, adds a little bit of visual interest, makes it really kind of fun. So I've already got some rows ready to go. I'm going to show you how to put your rows together, and then you know everything you know to make this quilt. So again, this row is going to be vertical, but I've got it side by side here so that way you guys can see it on the camera. So we've got our strip piece row on top of our section that is more all one piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip those right sides together, give it a little turn. And this is something that's a little weird to get used to because rather than having blocks that line up perfectly, they're going to be going across like that, and that's supposed to be that way. So I'm going to go ahead and get my ruler again and mark my 1/4 inch seam so that way I know I'm right on when I'm sewing this together. Just like before, I've got that 1/4 inch mark right up even with the edge of that fabric. And I'm just going to go ahead and mark that. Myself a nice guide, and I'm making sure that my pen tip is really getting right in there. I tried this with a pencil once and it just wasn't as sharp as the line, so I really always am either using my friction gel pens or my mechanical sew line pencil, which is white chalk inside so you can see it on dark fabrics. All right, so again, what I want to do is make sure that that hash mark is in line with the edge where that little valley is, and I can pin that if I want, or I can eyeball it and just sew it through, which is what I'm going to do next. So we're going to give this a little press, and again I'm lifting and moving that iron along so I don't press any seams going where they shouldn't be going. All right, we got a nice flat seam join there, and we've got nice straight lines, which is exactly what we want. I'm going to go ahead and press that from this direction as well. You can clip all these little dog ears off if you want. I'm going to leave them be because I find that, as long as I'm pressing the seams open, they really don't get in the way or add too much bulk. But you can feel free to clip those if you want. All right, so I'm going to keep putting the rest of the row together. And again, same process, just bigger pieces. So when you get your row halves together, you're going to have something that looks a little bit like this. So we've got a strip piece unit next to a solid one. And then we're going to have a piece of fabric running down the center. That way we don't have to match these points exactly, although we will go over how to get them as close as possible. And that way it also gives the eye a little bit of place to rest. That way, say if this fabric doesn't match perfectly with this one, no big deal because there's a little break in between it. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to flip these guys right sides together, and I'm going to sew with this center piece on the bottom. Reason why is because all of these strip piece units, these edges are cut on the bias. So if you have a sewing machine with less than fabulous feed dogs, it could really stretch out quite a bit on this. So I always, when I'm joining my row halves to my center, want to make sure that this center piece is on the bottom because that's cut on the straighter grain and it's going to behave and stay where it should be. So this part up here is going to be cut off when it's all done. So what I want to do is line up the top of this with the bottommost point of that tip because that's where we're going to slice it when it's all said and done. So I'm just going to go ahead and start by flipping this right sides together, lining that up. And again, I'm not going to pin this because we will save that for the next step. But as long as you keep this center strip in the center, it shouldn't get stretched out and everything should work really well for you. All right, so I'm just going to sew that 1/4 inch seam all the way down. Go ahead and give this a press. Again, I'm pressing everything open and I am lifting and then setting that iron down so that I don't get any of these seams going in the wrong direction. So my goal when I'm pinning the second side of the row here is to make sure that these bits are going to line up and be nice and even when everything is said and done. So the easiest way to get that started is going to be to flip everything over and line up your points at the top here. And then you can use your gel pen to make the mark even across where that should be. So if I line up the edge of my ruler so that I've got a nice even inch mark along that seam, and then the point even with where this bit is, I can make a little mark in where the seam allowance is going to be. And that's going to give me a nice little mark to go by when I'm putting everything together. Let me get a different pen. Let me see if it shows up a little better for you guys. Try it with the black. See if that shows up better for you. That'd be a no. One more. This might be it. Still no. And we have a winner. I can see the pink. All right, so I've got pink on here. It's in the seam allowance, and this will actually go away with heat. So I'm going to mark that real good where that pin should be. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same where all these bits are concerned. So I'm just going to go ahead and line up my inch line again with that seam line, and then in where that seam allowance is going to be, give it a good mark. Again, move down just a little bit so that I'm in line with the bottom of that bit. All right, so now that I've got my mark here, I'm going to eyeball about a 1/4 inch in and stick my pin right through the center of that seam. And then I'm going to stick my pin right a 1/4 inch away from the edge of this piece where that mark is. And once I feel like I've got everything in line, I'm going to go ahead and pull that pin out while I'm still pinching that fabric and just go ahead and put that in side by side. I'm going to keep doing that as I go down. In this case, we're not going to have a ton to mark here because we really just have to line up this bit here. So put a 1/4 inch, put it in about a 1/4 inch from the edge, match up. Once I'm satisfied, go ahead and pull the pin and then pin across. So even though I marked all of these, it really turns out some of them were unnecessary, which is great because then you don't have so much to mark. So you just want to make sure that where you've got your gray parts coming together, so I'm going to go ahead and put a pin here again. And we'll line that up with the mark underneath it and pin. Actually going to pop up here as well because there should be, yep, and there is. There's a mark right there. So I can go about a 1/4 inch away, line up with my registration mark there, and pin. All right, so what we've done here is we've lined up the bits where the grays are going to match when they're flipped over. I do not have any pins in the center area, but I want some because I want to make sure that this stays nice and even. And again, I'm doing this all with that nice straight strip on the bottom. That way I don't have to worry about these bias strips getting a little wonky as I'm sewing down. So I'm going to go ahead and pin in the center, just basically wherever these gray bits are coming together. I'm going to do about, I guess, 3 for every block here. All right, so now I'm going to sew along this line. We're obviously have to start at the other end, and we're going to sew with the straight part, that center bit, against your feed dogs, and just make sure that you've got everything nice and pinned where your gray parts are going to line up. And as long as you mark at the bottom of each of those blocks, you're going to be just fine. All right, so we've got our moment of truth. We're going to flip it over and kind of see how everything lined up. This is looking pretty good. It looks nice and even. Let's see how it's looking down here. Pretty good. All right, so as long as you're happy with this being as even as you're good with it being, then you're good to go. I'm going to press this open, and then when you're all done, you're also going to slice off the top, and don't do that until you've got your entire quilt top together. Then you can just even up the top and the bottom, and then you are ready to go. Just like always, I am pressing this open, and I am lifting and dropping that iron after I finger press it open with my 2 or 3 fingers there. And that way I don't flip any of these seams going in the wrong direction, and I get nice open flat seams, so it makes quilting a breeze. All right, we've done it. We've got a row sewn together. I really like how this is turning out, where we get that nice juxtaposition of lots of color and then a closer look at the fabric, because they are really fun designs. Some of them are just really a great call out. This one is just so cute. It's got so much in it. And then we've got this little bit on the side to, again, give it some more color. Really liking this quilt and how it's turning out. We'll put some photos into the finished quilt so you can see what it all looks like together. Again, go check out our website, shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. You definitely can get the pattern for this. We're going to have that. And we will have fabric while supplies last. You are going to need an A bundle and a B bundle if you want to make it exactly as we have here of Alice in Glass Holiday. We've split the collection into two 12 fat quarter pieces, and then you're also going to need this background fabric. Again, I've used the charcoal. I can speak, I promise. We've used the charcoal in the Kaleidoscope. It's also in Alice in Glass's signature colors. I really like this because it really just gives that eye a place to rest, so that way the fabrics can kind of call out on their own. I mean, this is just, I mean, I love it. I love it. I can't wait to see it all together. All right, so again, if you want to make sure you never miss out on fabric again when we have a limited edition line like this, make sure you sign up for our Stashin with Stephanie Club. We send out our best collection through that every month. You get 12 fat quarters for the price of 10, another $10 coupon to use off a $20 purchase to get additional fabric. Like if you need more for this pattern, you can shoot that. And you get a free pattern every month. And as soon as you sign up, we will send you a coupon for where you can get access to all the Stashin with Stephanie patterns that we have created to date. There are 12 of them now with this pattern, Ribbon Candy, and you can get all those right away and start making your quilts and busting that stash up. So check it out. You can sign up for it all at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. We've got links to everything in the video description down below. And if you love our videos and you want a way to say thanks and you like our projects, then definitely when you see something you like, if you want to get it from us, that helps support us, helps keep you bringing you new free videos every week and cool patterns each month. Thanks so much and until next time, happy quilting.